against a team who has a pretty strong defensive front.
Absolutely. Now let's jump on down to Houston and talk to our friend Lainie Fritz, who covers the Texans. Lainie, you're just trying to make a matchup here in this game. Which ones are jumping out to you?
Well, you guys just mentioned the offensive line for the Eagles. I'll go ahead and talk about the Texans' offensive line. You know, it's an area that's kind of been doubted in training camp. We talked about it almost every night on our Sunday night show, the concern of will they be able to protect Deshaun Watson, especially the style of quarterback he is. And frankly, it has been an issue this season. Watson is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. He's been sacked 52 times. He's been hit 110 times. But Coach O'Brien will bring to your attention that a lot of that has to do with Watson holding on to the ball a little too long. He's trying to extend plays, which is part of what makes him so great. Sometimes it works for him, sometimes it doesn't. But I think, you know, the Eagles do have a real opportunity to expose that with the offensive line.
Lainie, I'm interested to know the perception of Nick Foles in Houston. This is the guy who stepped in for an injured Carson Wentz last season, upset Tom Brady and the Patriots. What is the perception of Nick Foles with not just the fans, but the journalists and the players as well? What has the vibe been like in Houston this week?
Yeah. I mean, nothing but respect for Foles. I mean, I think that doesn't just go for Houston, that goes for across the entire league with fans, coaches, players, everybody. I mean, I think the Texans think, wow, how lucky are the Eagles that that's the guy who can step in as a backup. Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP. It's really incredible. And what stands out to me about him is what he's able to do under pressure. And I think about that heading into this game, that this is kind of a must win for the Eagles. And the Texans are definitely ready for him. They know that that's their big game plan against him, and especially how much he's been spreading the ball around as well.
Lainie, how much attention do you see Zach Ertz really getting from the defense of the Houston Texans? Especially Nick Foles takes over. He tends to spread the ball around a little bit more. Zach Ertz really being the number one target of this Eagles offense thus far.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, Ertz has been a name that has been brought up time and time again in the press conferences this week here in Houston, but also guys like Alshon Jeffries. They know that Foles can spread the ball around, and what they're really focused on, this Texans secondary, is not giving up the big plays. They have really struggled with that. Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton came up here and carved up the defense a couple weeks ago when they got their first loss after that 9-game win streak. I think Hilton had 4 catches for over 20 yards. One of those was a 60-yard catch. So their big focus right now when it comes to Nick Foles and this Eagles offense is not giving up those big yardage plays. They want to make them drive the length of the field, hope they can get a mistake, a turnover here and there, and that's something they're really looking for against Foles.
Lainie, I have to be honest with you. Someone who makes us a little jittery here in Philly is DeAndre Hopkins, against our cornerbacks who are stretched a little bit thin. He had a 100-plus receiving game against the Jets. Now, it was the first time in about 5 games that he broke that 100-yard game. What do you expect out of him as he goes against the Eagles?
See, I really think he is my big key to this game. I think if Hopkins can go off and have a big game, that's how the Texans will win, especially with the running game right now not in good shape. We've got Lamar Miller, who sprained his ankle against the Jets, so he's not 100%. They've really kind of been able to shut down the Texans running game the past couple of weeks, so it will be huge for DeAndre Hopkins to step up. I think he can beat the Eagles corners, no doubt. You know, he had a quote this week, and he said, any ball that's in the air, that's mine. That's the way that this guy plays the game. He's a huge competitor, and I think it's really going to be up to him to help the Texans win this game.
Lainie, it's next to impossible to have a good football team with an offensive line that's allowing over 50 sacks so far this season. But the Texans yet 10-1. They've won 9 in a row so far this season. 10-1 in the last 11 games, though. What makes the team so good?
Well, you know, I think when you look at their roster and you see names like J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Jonathan Joseph, I mean, they have the talent. That's why it was so disappointing when they started 0-3. It was like, come on, you've got to be a good team with the talent that you guys have. But the biggest key, I think, in how they've turned things around is their ball security. They are ranked 3rd in the league right now in the turnover takeaway margin. They're +10. And Deshaun Watson has only had 2 turnovers in the past 9 games. That's a part of his game that he has really greatly improved from last season. He's still getting sacked a lot, but he's not turning the ball over. And I think that's going to be big for them, especially being on the road back-to-back weeks, for them to come away with the win in Philly.
Lainie, you talked about Deshaun Watson being sacked a lot, which he really was 52 times this season. But when I look at him, what I'm wondering is about his 5 fourth-quarter comebacks. What do you attribute that to?
I mean, the guy's just a winner. I think he reminds me of the kind of Tom Brady type mentality. Now, I worked in Charleston, South Carolina for my first job, actually, so I covered him when he was at Clemson, and that's just in his DNA. That's how the guy is. He's a winner. The game's never over for him. The play's never over for him, and that has been huge for the Texans this year because they haven't been winning these games by a lot. A lot of them have been comebacks, and a lot of them have come down to the last minute. But with a guy like that, that's been the difference in what the Texans franchise has never had, is someone like Deshaun Watson, and he's the difference maker. And I think if him and DeAndre Hopkins can hook up and make some things happen, then it could go their way.
What about the head coach? What's the perception of him in Houston, Lainie? A guy that obviously left the great state of Pennsylvania, coaching Penn State University, and then goes down to Houston now in his 5th year coaching the Texans. Just one playoff win. But what is the perception in Houston of the head coach?
I mean, the players have a ton of respect for him. This is a guy that players love. The media, we have a lot of respect for him. The fans are a little hard on him, and it's because they want a deeper playoff run. This is a fan base that is so hungry. It's a new franchise, but they're so hungry to really do something in the playoffs. They haven't done that yet, and I think they see the potential for that with this team. This is his first 10-win season with the Texans, and I think this game against the Eagles is really going to be a defining game for him. If he can win this game, that's really going to start rolling for him as this Texans head coach and take maybe the Texans to another level that they haven't seen under him here yet.
Lainie Fritz, NBC2 in Houston. Thanks so much for stopping by. Great talking to you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll be right back with the Rollout with Philly Sports Talk returns.